Hi, I'm Jill Wolcott of Jill Wolcott Knits. Welcome to Taming Techniques. These are short videos I do to show you how I do techniques that I use in my patterns. So watch, practice, and then do it yourself. Today's technique is gauge swatches. Here I've done two identical swatches and marked off 4 inches on each of them. Then on this one on the left with the yellow, I washed it, just hand washed it in the sink. And this one, I steamed it a little bit because I needed to get it to lay flat. I used a size 8 needle. I tie knots in my tail, so I've got 1 knot for every needle size. If it's a half size or if I'm doing millimeters, I might put that half space down here or put it up here in my finish. So looking at these swatches, they're not very different. I marked out the 4 inches before I washed it so we could see what difference there is. And you can see if you look over here that there's about a half a stitch difference between the unwashed and the washed. I'm very precise about gauge. If you've used my patterns, you'll note that, like I will say, this is 3.625 stitches to the inch. It's not 3.5 and it's not 3 3/4. So unblocked, it is 3 3/4, but 3 3/4 isn't 4. If the finish size was 36, I would, at 3.625 stitches to the inch, need 130 stitches. Let's say or 131. I need an even or an odd number. And if I use the gauge from my unblocked swatch, I'm going to get 135 stitches. So 5 stitches, again, you might say, meh, what's the big deal? Well, depends on how well you want this to fit. People often say, well, I think it'll block out. And that's great if you know that it's going to block out. Yarn is only going to relax so much. Stitches are only going to stay to their blocked measurements if the fiber is so inclined to do that. So I don't normally do both a blocked and unblocked. What I would do is I would take this swatch and I would measure it and write down on a piece of paper what the blocked measurements are. I would lay this down like that. I would make a rough outline of it so that I basically know what that swatch looks like. And I would go around and carefully do that. Here I'm just, and then I would write down 15 stitches to 4 inches and 21 rows to 4 inches, and I would write unblocked. I would take my blocked piece and I would lay it out and I would draw around that. I would take my gauge, which I already did, so I would then write 14.5 stitches to 4 inches and 22 rows to 4 inches. I actually need to work 22 rows to get 4 inches, not 21 rows. So that's my 4 inches. Here, it may be a different number of rows. I take this information and then first I would divide everything by 4. Okay, so I've got this rough piece of paper. It tells me everything I need to know. 36-inch chest times 3.75, which is my unblocked, means I need 135 stitches. 3.625 times that same 36 inches tells me that I need 131. So 5 stitches over the garment, that's an inch. Actually an inch and almost an inch and a quarter. And that could really make a difference in how it fits. So going for length, if I have 5.5 rows, and let's say I'm knitting 7 inches, that's like a nice armhole length. So 38.5 at 5.5, that's our blocked gauge. And 7 times 5.25 is 36.75. So that's going to be like an entire pair of rows. So let's say it said that I needed to end on a wrong side row. So that means I need an even number of rows. I'm going to take it down to 36. And if I did the same thing with the 38.5, it would take me down to 38, which means that I would have 2 less rows if I worked to the unblocked row gauge. So I just figure out how many rows I need to make or work, and then I work the number of rows, and I don't ever measure on my needles. That way I don't have to worry about whether I measure those stitches on the needles or not. I just count rows. So I did want to show you that I don't normally do that lovely stitching. It would be nice, but I don't. So I would pin this like that, and then I would figure out, I only have 3 pins here, so up here I would mark there, and I would make sure that my 4 inches fell between my 2 pins, and then from here to here I would again mark it so that I can count my stitches. So once I've got it like this, I can then pick it up, and it doesn't matter if I distort it when I'm counting it. So I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could put another pin in if I wanted to, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You get the idea. But I can count those stitches, and I don't have to worry because it's all marked off. I usually measure gauge more than once. I do it in a couple of different places. Stockinette is not a problem, but some things really pull in at the center, so you want to be sure that you are measuring at a place that you're going to get the most accurate gauge.